Guys, who stole my microphone? I need to record this week's episode of the podcast. What was that? Where did that laughter come from? Are you practicing magic now, Bradley? No, Finton. I'm trying out a new sitcom format inspired by this week's guest. I really enjoyed her series, It's All Greek to Phil, so just trying something similar. Ah, I see. Trying to pump up your ratings, then. Hey, did someone say pump up? Oh, hey Arnold. Yeah, we're doing a little sitcom-style intro this week. I don't care about that. Gollum is in the kitchen. He's choking on something. I think it's one of my lemon cookies. What? Okay, let's go. We need help. Gollum, are you okay? Gollum. Does anyone here know CPR? I do. Since when? You've never taken safety classes? I saw a guy do it on TV once. How hard can it be? Okay, get out of the way. Let me try. Oh, wait. I think they're okay. We didn't like Sizzles that cookie. Yeah, we were so scared. Aww. Sorry, guys. We'll make sure Arnold gets the recipe right on the next batch. In the meantime, I need to go record the Saved as Draft podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 54 of the Saved as Draft podcast. We're nearly back to normal this week, but between my work, travel, and the lovely Snowmageddon, as some are calling it, things have been quite chaotic here. So, please bear with me as I get things back up to speed, but this week's episode is still a packed one. We'll start off with our community spotlight, then we'll get a look at this week's shoutouts. From there, we'll check out the Wandering Prompt stories from a few weeks back, and after that, I'll share all my thoughts on the amazing poems submitted for the last power-up prompt, which went on for the last 2 weeks. Once that's done, it'll be time for our featured guest interview. This week I'm sitting down with Hallie Jules. So, yeah, the only thing that's really missing this week is our writing discussion, but I promise I'll get that back into the mix next week. Before we get into our shoutouts, let's talk about this week's Community Spotlight. Since it was her birthday earlier this week, I'd like to share a bit about my friend Verdant Butterfly. This is a writer, poet, and artist here on Substack who is one of the most amazing and talented people I've ever met. Not only that, but her love of this community is truly inspiring. She produces amazing work and art to go with it, and she's always supporting others, checking in on people, and going so far as to do fan art of their work. And let me tell you, there is nothing more fulfilling than seeing someone do art on a piece that you wrote because they enjoyed your writing. A recent example was the art that Verdant Butterfly did for Mariah K. Porter's ongoing serial, Isekai Overload. So be sure to check that out if you get a chance. And yeah, if you're not already friends with our friendly neighborhood fairy, as I like to call her, now's the time. Check the show notes for links to some of Verdant Butterfly's work and where you can subscribe. And thank you once again to Verdant Butterfly for being an amazing foundational member of this community and for sharing your amazing work with the world. All right, that's all the housekeeping for this week. Next, we'll take a look at this week's shoutouts right after a quick word from this week's sponsor. Today's episode of the Saved as Draft podcast is sponsored by Dumb Appliances Depot. All right, I'm running late. Just need to make some toast. Please log in. Right, it's a smart toaster. It needs a login for some reason. Okay, I think I remember my password. Okay, there. Okay, I just need 2 slices, toasted exactly how I like it. How are you today? I'm in a hurry. Can you just make my toast? Certainly. Great. Please take this quick survey. A survey? Dude, just make my toast. You know what? Forget it. I'll grab a yogurt out of the fridge. Hey, why isn't the fridge opening? Too many calories. Maybe skip breakfast today. You are looking fat. Since when does my fridge do haikus? I didn't get a smart fridge just so you could insult me. Ugh, I'm so tired of this smart crap overcomplicating everything. Are the smart devices in your life turning into smart asses? Try Dumb Appliances Depot, the only place where you can find simple solutions that do exactly what they're supposed to do and nothing else. Remember when washing machines had 3 settings instead of 12 cycles, 4 temperatures, and access to your Wi-Fi? What about the days when a fridge couldn't talk to you? Or how about the days when you could get a dishwasher that just washes dishes instead of one of those that complains to you about how much you're scrubbing? Say goodbye to the Internet of Things and say hello to just normal, everyday things. Come on down to the Dumb Appliances Depot today. All right, and we're back. Shout out to Rebecca Watson for the sponsor idea this week. Mina tagged me in a restack of her note about smart appliances, and I immediately knew it had to become a joke on the show here. All right, and for this segment, every Tuesday I open up a thread in my subscriber chat for you to put down links to all your latest work. I select 5 at random to feature here on the show, so let's dive right in and see what we got. Our first shout out this week is Not Quite Home by Natasha Johnson. As I've mentioned before, Natasha and I are colleagues at my day job, and she recently just started a Substack, so I'm excited for the chance to share my thoughts on this new piece of hers. This one is a personal essay about Natasha's journey moving to America in 2019 from London, and how much things have changed since she got here. It's a fascinating piece that reflects on everything that's happened in this country over the last several years, while also sharing Natasha's internal struggle with trying to fit into a world she no longer recognizes. It's powerful stuff, and as always, Natasha's writing style is both earnest and authentic. It's easy to connect with, and it resonates deeply with the reader. Honestly, I've loved everything she's published so far, so be sure to check it out. Here's an excerpt. I can't pinpoint the exact moment, but I'd hazard a guess that something shifted in 2020. Beyond the obvious, the millions of lives lost globally, something I don't think we'll ever fully recover from for years, a darkness seemed to descend over America, maybe over the world. A heaviness that arrived slowly and never quite lifted. In some ways, it feels heavier and more suffocating now than it did then. I've been trying to catch my breath ever since. Trying to fit into a place that doesn't quite fit anymore. Noticing all the ways I'm different from everyone around me. Differences I once cherished, but which now leave me feeling alien, out of step. Is this just getting older? Is it motherhood? I don't have the answers. What I do know is that the place I dreamed about for so long now feels more like a nightmare I can't wake up from. Wow, powerful stuff. Great start to this week's shoutouts. Like I said, check out what Natasha's doing over there. It's some great stuff. Our second shoutout this week is House Guest by Rebecca Watson. This piece is special for a few reasons. Number one being that Rebecca's poetry is always phenomenal. Secondly, this piece also includes narration. Yes, you heard that right. Rebecca is narrating her poetry, and something I love about this is the fact that we get to hear how she imagines the rhythm and flow of the piece. So for example, she reads faster than I necessarily would in my own head, but she keeps the pace she's set throughout the entire poem. I actually really enjoyed the tempo here, especially in the first few stanzas, as it really emphasized the sharper points of each line. In terms of the poem itself, it's a piece about love, but she imagines love if it were a person, flaws and all. We get different angles and perspectives on this personification of love as the piece goes on, and it's clear this isn't the storybook fairy tale kind of love that you may have heard about. It's real. And that makes each line hit even harder. Here's an excerpt. It would show up empty-handed, and still manage to take up the whole room, smelling like something familiar you can't place. Laundry soap, rain, a past version of yourself. Love would speak softly, but leave bruises on the furniture. It would say, I didn't mean to, and somehow always mean it, and not mean it at the same time. Beautiful work from Rebecca as always this week. Our third shout out this week is Tuned to Tomorrow by Sarah Tinney. I'm really excited to see if Sarah joins the upcoming Flash Fiction February prompts, because she specializes in flash fiction and it always hits the mark. Case in point, this short piece is based on a prompt involving a radio that picks up broadcasts from the future. Really good prompt. I promise I won't steal it, but I do like it a lot. I'll have to come up with something similar, I think, next month. What I love about this piece, though, is how the radio picks up simple stuff that the protagonist can use to get themselves some money and win some bets. It's harmless. That is, until they come home and hear something much, much more foreboding. I won't spoil what it is, but it makes for a truly chilling ending. I actually gasped while reading it. Here's an excerpt. He found the radio while cleaning out the garage. Turning the dial, he came across a station he hadn't heard before. Who would start a new radio network these days? At first, he thought the announcer had the date wrong. However, he often muddled his dates and gave it little thought. As he worked, he caught odd snippets. Mighty House has won the Melbourne Cup. Milton Jones is the new Prime Minister. He didn't follow the news closely, but eventually realized he was hearing events before they happened. He even placed a few bets. Nothing big, just enough for Friday night at the pub. Great stuff. Check it out. It's a quick but powerful read. Our fourth shout out this week is We Let the Dark In, Chapter 1 by Alex Jeter. So, this is Chapter 1 of Alex's novel, and I gotta say, it makes one heck of a first impression. The writing is immediately captivating, and the story opens with an intense scene that waxes poetic about some dark themes before diving into dialogue and suspense. It's a psychological thriller, and you get those themes very quickly once you start reading. Within a few paragraphs, the protagonist is quickly cleaning up a bloody mess and then seeing a patient who's dealing with their own problems related to a tech addiction. It all moves at a breakneck pace, and the subject matter is quite heavy, but it's handled well. There's so much going on in this first chapter that it can almost feel overwhelming at times, but I imagine that's what Alex is going for, since our protagonist themselves is caught off guard and dealing with a lot at once. It all culminates in a final moment where he learns that his father is still alive, and it's clear that's not something worth celebrating. It's a roller coaster of a first chapter, and it immediately hooked me with sharp writing and bare-knuckle intensity. Here's an excerpt. The door to my office shook as someone on the other side pounded it. The tip of my blade sank deeper into my torso, ricocheting off my ribcage, then flying from my hand and bouncing off the stiff, low-pile carpet. Dr. Brooks? Daniel Leibowitz and his mother are in the waiting room. They're 30 minutes early. Should I send them in? Asked Molly. I cupped my hand over my mouth, blowing air through my fingers, trying not to yelp in agony. 5 minutes! Was the first thing that came to my tiny brain, then spilled regretfully over my lips. There was blood on the carpet, blood on my pants, impossible amounts seeping from the wound on my shirtless body. How was I going to clean all this up in 5? Awesome, great work from Alex, well worth a read. Our final shout out this week is Stormkeepers by Rachel Tribble. It's been a while since I featured Rachel's work on the show here, but longtime listeners will recall that she was one of the first interviews I ever did here on the podcast. This is a piece for the Turtles of Alchemy prompt, Touched by the Sun. One thing I've really missed about Rachel's work is how it takes profound and powerful themes and weaves them into moments that feel distinctly intimate and human. This piece centers around two characters named Maria and Shoshana, and it features an ancient tome that has been passed down through their family. It's a quiet moment, a small moment, but it quickly balloons into something bigger. It becomes almost cosmic in scope, but it never leaves these characters, which keeps things feeling grounded. All the while, Rachel's imagery shines through in every line. It's distinct, vivid, and nearly poetic in its beauty. Here's an excerpt. Maria stared out the window while Shoshana worked the paste onto the page. She felt the sky begin to bend. The first waves scattered the starlight into phosphorescent streams of green and pink that streaked through the night. The colors twisted as they spiraled toward the city miles away. Shoshana came to the window and stood beside her. They held hands as another wave of purple and yellow shot through the sky. Maria ran her tongue over her teeth. The taste of metal lingered in her mouth. She glanced at her sister, who met her eyes with a knowing look. They waited. A wide channel separated their island from the city. Though it lay far across the water, there was no way to avoid the shockwave of thousands of power transformers exploding at once. Static filled the air. Invisible currents of electricity crossed the channel. Violent waves crashed onto the beach, sending spray into the trees. The colors in the sky intensified as the shoreline went dark. Truly magical stuff. I love the atmosphere. And a great way to wrap up this week's shoutouts. Next up, we'll take a look at the Wandering Prompt winner and runner-ups from a few weeks ago. Hello and welcome to this week's Wandering Prompt Award Ceremony. Given that Flash Fiction February is starting this weekend, I won't be hiding a Wandering Prompt in this episode, or in any of February's episodes for that matter, because you're all getting 28 daily prompts next month, and I figured that was probably enough. Don't worry though, the Wandering Prompts will be back in March. In the meantime, our last Wandering Prompt was from January 10th, feels like forever ago. We'll start with a quick look at the runner-ups, and then we'll talk about the winner. The last Wandering Prompt was to write a story about a never-ending war, so let's dive in and see what we got. Our first runner-up is The Rest of the Day by Jennifer Jorgensen. For this piece, Jennifer throws us right into the midst of an intense battle, and she hints at a time loop element where this battle seems to be endlessly repeating. Now, I've mentioned it before, but The Outer Wilds, which is a video game, is one of my favorites of all time, and it has its own time loop mechanic. Honestly, time loops in general are just fascinating to me, so this story gets major points for that. As always with Jennifer's work, too, the devil's in the details. I love the subtle references to the larger loop, to the things that stay the same, and the things that may or may not change. It's rooted in the moment, but the implications echo outward. Really exciting work, as always, from Jennifer. And, just to share the opening line because it works so well, the beginning of the story simply reads, "The loop resets with the dawn." Exceptional work. Our second runner-up story for the last wandering prompt is Ambivalence by Verdant Butterfly. This is a poem that begins with some gorgeous stanzas that weave emotion and imagery into a tapestry that will become the foundation for the rest of the story. Once the groundwork is set, the poem transitions with a stanza that reads, "The horn sounds. It always sounds." From there, things shift into action, but the poetic elements are still there. It's a battle that feels like a song, and I love how Verdant Butterfly ties a looping element into this as well, using the stanza about the horns again near the end to signify the battle has begun anew. Okay, and with that, it's time to talk about 2 weeks ago's Wandering Prompt winner. This is, of course, the piece that was published first after the podcast 2 weeks ago. So, with that, announcers, take it away. And the winning Wandering Prompt story from January 10th is Turning in the Ring of Never by Loki Cone. Loki Cone did something really interesting with the prompt here. They wrote about the idea of a war that never ends, a looping feeling or internal battle. Yeah, the concept here is a poem about two moons that go around and around but never meet. The author notes at the end and explains how they wanted the words to sound tired but beautiful, and I feel like they absolutely succeeded there. The war here is really a battle against hopelessness. It's the fight to keep going, even if it seems like victory is never within reach. It's honestly one of the best poems I've read in a long, long time. Let's check out an extended excerpt. Your shadow is my flag. Your breath is my measure. I follow you through cities made of salt, through fields where poppies bloom from spent shells, through the architecture of almost, the republic of return. The tango does not end. The tango only pauses to remember how it began. Heel, drag, pause, with a glance that lasted centuries, with a step that broke the earth in two. I have held you in every language war can speak. I have lost you in the grammar of forgetting. The moons do not touch. They orbit like prisoners who have learned to love their chains, who dance because standing still would be the only true surrender. What is love but the refusal to arrive? What is battle but the promise that tomorrow we will meet again, blades bright, hearts brighter, and neither of us will yield? Seriously got chills reading that. Incredible work from Loki Cone. I'm honestly speechless. Thank you to everyone who submitted for the past Wandering Prompt. Next up, we'll take a look at this week's Indie Release Radar. Hello and welcome to this week's Indie Release Radar, powered by Bookstack. We haven't done one of these in 10,000 years. Okay, first of all, Arnold, it's been 2 weeks. And secondly, neither of us would be here if 10,000 years had gone by. Speak for yourself! I'm going to live forever! Well, I can't argue with your optimism. Anyway, let's dive into this week's indie releases. First up, Little Wolf in the Storm Volume 1 stars Zhang Xiaoland and Lei Wenhei, who both seem like normal people on the surface, but both of them harbor dangerous secrets. In particular, Lei Wenhei wants to kill Zhang Xiaolang, but when Zhang shows up one day to hire Lei for his healing services, he hesitates to set his plan in motion. Zhang begins flirting with him non-stop, wishing to be the first one to break down Lei's emotional walls. Will these enemies find a reason to forgive each other and perhaps become something more? Little Wolf in the Storm, Volume 1 is out now, and you can find a link to the book in the show notes. Next up, Frost and Iron is the first book in the Ashland Chronicles series from author Idale Lane. This sweeping, post-apocalyptic sapphic epic combines political intrigue, survival, found family, slow burn romance, and high-stakes frontline action. Lark Suitor has never feared the wilds of Saltmarsh Reach, but when a raider attack leaves her friend on the brink of death, Lark is driven to the last place she ever thought she'd go, Verdancia's gleaming capital. Now she must demand aid from a queen she has no reason to trust. Will Lark and the queen see eye to eye in time to save their respective people from ruin? Check the link in the show notes to get your copy and find out. And next up, Perfect Strangers is an upcoming vacation romance from author Jay Reese. It stars Evander Weston, a hotshot lawyer who decides to take his honeymoon alone after being left at the altar. He soon meets Heath Lennox, a bookworm who has also been stood up by the person he was supposed to meet. When these two find out their resort is a couples-only retreat, they decide to pose as newlyweds to get by. Will circumstances lead to a friendship and perhaps something more? Grab your copy of Perfect Strangers today and find out. Well, Arnold, what did you think of this week's releases?
I like the variety. There's so many good options.
I agree. Which one are you going to start with?
Ooh, I think I'll start with Frost and Iron. Those are two of my favorite things.
Yeah, Frost and Iron basically describes what I've been dealing with all the snow, so I think I'll start there too. Thanks as always to Bookstack and Hazel Allen for helping us get the word out about new indie author releases. And now, back to the show. All right, everybody, and now it's time to talk about the last power-up prompt, which has been going on for nearly 2 weeks. It's the longest power-up prompt ever, and the last one before Flash Fiction February. Since the prompt lasted 2 weeks, I have more entries to talk about than ever before on the show. The prompt, of course, here was poetry, and the elements were asked you to include a theme of identity, a focus on a specific emotion, and because this is me we're talking about, I wanted you to also include a musical pairing. We've got nearly 30 poems to talk about, so let's dive in. First up, we've got From Rise to Ride by James Mays. This poem starts off really strong with the theme of identity. It involves someone waking up and sort of being born into the morning light. There's lines about rising out of the dirt, skin growing, and other things that gave me a strong sense of rebirth. From there, it takes on a kind of dark Western flavor that I really enjoyed. It hints at what's going to happen next, but the combination of the setting and the genre made this one stand out immediately in my mind. It also, of course, includes a musical pairing that falls into dark country as the genre, and I think that fits perfectly with the vibes of the piece here. Fantastic start to this week. Our next poem is Boxed In by Namita Kaul. This piece includes some original art as well that was done in a watercolor sketchbook, and it's excellent work. Much like the title suggests, this piece talks about how we're often made to conform or fit into boxes and labels that society has for us. It's a personal piece that explores how we find our place in the world and how outside forces try their best to mold us in the way they think is best. It's very powerful, and the musical pairing from Sia, titled Courage to Change, is a perfect choice to reinforce the themes of the poem. Great work, Namita, and now on to the next one. Next up, we have Alteration Wings in a Case by Nicholas Barely. As is always the case with Nicholas's work, this poem is deeply symbolic and beautifully rendered. The image here is a trio of insects in a case, and the poem explores that structure to talk about a butterfly, a dragonfly, and a horsefly, each of which are meant to embody a different emotion and persona. The musical pairing here, which is Change in the House of Flies by Deftones, is excellent as well. The song captures the surreal elements of the poem beautifully, and the melancholy of the vocals serves to further drive home the emotions of the poem as well. I'm loving these entries so far. Truly exceptional work as well from Nicholas this week. Next up, we have Drumming to Youth Gone Wild at 3 o'clock in the afternoon by Mel Ruth. This piece was entered in the comments of the post, and I highly recommend it. It uses the concept of music, specifically percussion, to discuss the rhythm of a life and how it ripples out to others like sound waves. It talks about a father who is diagnosed with cancer, but even as he passes away, the music he created is remembered and inherited by those left behind. It's very emotional, but the way the piece ties that emotion together with the music and how the identity lives on after the father is gone is truly beautiful. Awesome work from Mel. Next up, we've got a poem from this week's guest on the show, actually. Shake Me Out by Hallie Jules is a piece that reflects on all the identities that Hallie has embodied throughout her life. It's a rapid-fire look at all the roles we adopt in the name of trying to find ourselves and survive the trials and tribulations that life throws at us. It also reflects on how she feels here in the present, and it boldly declares how she plans to move forward. It's an inspiring and incredibly well-written piece of poetry. Hallie and I will actually discuss it in our interview later in this episode, so look forward to that. And next up, we've got Not Poetry by J.M. Gooding. And those who know J.M. know that he likes to subvert my expectations with the prompts, so I'm excited to talk about what he did here. Right off the bat, J.M. decides to shatter the fourth wall and directly refers to the prompt just before his muse character Kira enters the scene. They begin discussing the prompt, and I love again how everything gets really meta really fast. At one point, Kira pokes fun at the fact that J.M. does these prompts like he'll somehow lose his writing license if he doesn't, to which he reminds her that he has skipped some of them before. What I love about this piece is how it embodies the internal struggle that we feel as writers. It's a natural and relatable conversation that we've all had with our muse or our inner voice, and the way that JM is able to balance relatability with universal truths and just a touch of meta humor is one of the reasons why I always look forward to how he approaches these prompts. And a special nod to the musical pairing, which the story elegantly leads right into at the end. I never quite know what to expect from J.M. Gooding, but it's one of the many reasons why I always look forward to reading his new work. You've done it again, my friend, so excellent job. Our next poem this week is from Teresa Green. This was posted as a note, and right off the bat, I love the rhyme structure and flow. The piece flows beautifully, and the interplay between the rhymes really sells on the emotions of the piece. It explores identity through multiple lenses, how it can be an existential crisis, how the world tries to pin us down when all we want to do is escape and find ourselves. Ultimately, the piece settles on the chaos of it all, and I think that's fair. Ultimately, we have to find our own peace and resilience in this world. The musical pairing here is In My Life by the Beatles, which I think goes wonderfully with the structure and flow of the poem. So, awesome work from Teresa this week. Moving right along, our next piece is The Ravishing New Me by Gregory Blair. There's an amazing introduction to this piece in the post where Gregory talks about identifying through the lens of metamorphosis and transformation. I love the line about becoming a rogue star that refuses to submit to any orbit or constellation. From there, we get our musical pairing, and then we dive into the poem. I like the sequencing here as well. In the poem, all the elements come together to create a bold and striking piece that is packed with confidence and self-awareness, but one that also clashes with itself. That internal conflict with these dual emotions is a really nice element here. The ending in particular is my favorite, where it says, "I am relishing and ravishing every mad, delicious moment of it." The musical pairing, I have to say also, is elegant and haunting. Much like a wine pairing, the emotions of the music combine exceptionally with the piece itself, elevating it through the medium of music. It's why I love musical pairings with my work, and it's why this is a great, great entry from Gregory this week. Next, we have A Puppet with No Handler by Malric Wraithmore. Malric's poetry has always been lyrical from what I've read, so with this piece, they actually created their own music pairing that leverages the lyrics they wrote. It's really quite the experience if you listen to it as you read along with the lyrics they've written. And the flow here is phenomenal. Each line cuts deep, and the story it tells is both gut-wrenching and somehow inspiring at the same time. There's a deep hurt here, but also an anger and determination that comes through beautifully. The repetition of imagery of the fractured puppet that has broken free and come back stronger despite all it's been through is a powerful metaphor. Very impressed with the entry here. Great work. Next we have The Note That Stayed by DBLK Rose of Black Spider Publishing. For this piece, we have a story that is rich with beautiful metaphor and imagery, a sort of poetic blend that I really enjoyed. The focus on music here and the way that it connects us to deeper emotions and understanding about ourselves as human beings is stunning. It's a piece that will literally and metaphorically pluck at your heartstrings, given that a harp is one of the main elements. And I really enjoyed the musical pairing here. It's Debussy's Clair de Lune played on harp, and it is quite literally the perfect pairing for a story like this, for reasons that you will understand once you read, and you absolutely should. Beautiful work. And our next piece is Verdant and Sable by Verdant Butterfly. With this piece, Verdant Butterfly explores two sides of her identity through the lens of her verdant and sable sides. Much like yin and yang, both are necessary and both combine to make her the person she is today. The poem dances between these two halves of the same soul, offering beautiful examples of how one feeds the other and how she's always evolving and learning as time goes on. It's a reflective piece that dovetails wonderfully into the larger themes of her publication and the work she's doing here on Substack. The musical pairing from Hailstorm is perfect as well. Just the right amount of bite to represent the balance she struck in the poem itself. Verdant Butterfly never misses, and this one is one of her best. Our next piece is Ghosts by Mina Howell. In the spirit of the last piece, Mina's poem here is also incredibly vulnerable. She includes a note that explains how it relates to her current circumstances and the struggles she's faced. It's a piece about going back to a place filled with the ghosts of your past. It's about what's left after so many years, and if we can truly return with fresh eyes. I can tell that Mina dug deep to write this one, and it comes through in the wording and in the poetry itself. You can feel her working through the past, facing those demons, and coming out the other side all the stronger for it. When I first read it, I left a comment about how creative works like this allow us as humans to bleed onto the page right alongside our demons. I believe that every time we allow ourselves to reflect like this on a deep and profound level, those demons of ours get just a little bit weaker, and we take a little piece of our power back in that exchange. I felt that in this work from Mina, and as I said in my comment, I'm insanely proud of her for putting this out there because it is real, it is raw, and it is genuine. It is perhaps the quintessential form of what we're doing here as creatives, and it's one of the best entries I've read for this Power Up prompt. Our next poem this week is Where Colors Hide by Mariah K. Porter. So with this piece, Mariah also shows an exceptional level of vulnerability. There's a deep truth laced into these words. It tells the story of identity that becomes overwhelming in the face of a world that doesn't seem to care. It's a piece that breaks down and then builds itself back up. A look at her journey as a person and as a creative. There's a turning point here that I loved where you can see the moment that she finds purpose and community and drive. The arc that the piece follows is exceptional. It dives into the depths of these emotions we all know very well, but then it shows the way Mariah climbed her way back out of the depths. Beautifully written, very inspiring. And remember, you can find links to all these in the show notes. Really stunning poems this week. Let's keep it going. Next, we have a haiku by Suparna Chakraborty. Since it's a haiku and it's just 3 lines, I will read it here for us. It goes, false dichotomy, hyphens, crush, identity. Completely myself. My favorite thing about haikus is how they manage to capture a lot in 3 lines. I feel like the limitations of the medium actually bring out the best in some of us. And that's certainly the case here with Suparna's entry. The middle line about a hyphen crushing identity is powerful, and I love how it ends with an affirmation about being yourself. Awesome work. Next up, we have Mirror, Mirror by Mary Ellen Brady, and I'll just say right off the bat, this is yet another reminder of why Mary Ellen's one of my favorite writers of all time. This piece examines identity through 2 lenses simultaneously. It considers the version we think ourselves to be and the ones that others perceive us as. It uses the idea of a reflection to symbolize this, and I love how she brings in her signature magical style to offer some cosmic element and reflection. The final stanza also offers an exceptional takeaway before we reach the musical pairing, which is of course The Pretender by the Foo Fighters. A perfect track to tie off this experience. The lyrics and tone of the song match the feelings of the poem perfectly. As always, Mary Ellen understood the assignment, and it's fantastic work. Our next poem this week is Solitude by Tamsin G. As always, Tamsin went all out with this one. She included some beautiful original art with the piece, and the musical pairing is spot on. The musical pairing itself is a long legend story by TTRM, and the track really suits the quiet contemplation of the piece. And the poem itself, she describes herself like a rock, or more specifically a geode. She's strong on the exterior, but the inside is hollow and filled with beauty, and I love that metaphor. And of course, the ending is just incredibly resonant. It says, when you look inside, you see a world unknown to all except me. I love it. Absolutely amazing work from beginning to end. Tamsin's work is always exceptional, so I love to see it. Our next poem is a level 2 entry from Rebecca Watson entitled The Architecture of a Ghost. So just when I think that this week's entries can't get any better, here comes Rebecca once again with a poem that is just insanely good. It begins with a metaphor that she herself is a lighthouse, perceived by the world as a steady and guiding light. And then it switches to a kitchen setting, and now she's a teacup on the edge of a sink, ready to shatter. And then we zoom out to the scope of the cosmos, talking about how easy it would be to just leave, but instead, she chose to stay. I'm getting chills just thinking about these final stanzas. As always, Rebecca's work, it just dives right into the depths of my soul as I'm reading, and it speaks a language that I didn't know anyone else understood. And it wraps things up with a Radiohead musical pairing that taps into that soft, quiet melancholy of the piece perfectly. If you're not already a fan of Rebecca's poetry, this one, I promise, will win you over. An amazing entry in a sea of phenomenal poems this week. All right, and our next poem is The Weight of Roads Untrod by Loki Cone. And I don't know if I'm ready for this after that amazing poem Loki Cone did for the last Wandering prompt. But here goes nothing. And so I was writing this part of the script as I read the poem, and I just had to pause real quick to mention how much I love the way Loki Cone sort of builds identity in real time with this piece. There's a stanza that reads, "This is the cartography of becoming, not roads taken, but the ruts they leave behind." And I love that line. And yeah, the poem was insanely good. The structure and metaphor is spot on, and the musical pairing is Max Richter's On the Nature of Daylight, which is a beautiful track to listen to after reading this. It's got soft, slow string instruments that just lay a beautiful foundation for the other emotions of the poem. An exquisite pairing. Next up, we've got Identity is a Scam by Happy Nielsen. This is Happy's first time entering a power-up prompt, so I'm really excited to talk about it. It's a great first piece that rips apart the concept of identity. It throws out the idea that we belong under labels. The repetition in the lines is awesome. I love the way that it keeps a steady rhythm, saying things like, being a mom isn't you, being a writer isn't you, and then it devolves into simply being isn't you. And it ends on a powerful note saying that identity is a scam because you aren't a person at all. And that final line really hit for me. If I'm not a person, then what am I? I personally interpret it as Happy saying that we are more than the sum of our parts, that we're not just people, we're forces of nature, we're beyond description, we're wholly unique. It's one of those poems that you can interpret a lot of ways, and I love that about it. Our next poem is Punk Rock Mike by Every Root, Every Thorn. I believe this is my first time reading this author's work, and I love the style they utilized here. The lines are visceral and punchy, in some cases quite literally. It reads almost like spoken word with emphasis on the end of each line. As a result, it makes an impact immediately, and as the piece goes on, it's full of conviction and anger and drive. It even includes a link to a musical pairing from Black Flag with a track called Six Pack. The genre is very much punk rock, and it lends itself well to the themes of the piece. Great vibes, and some excellent rhyme structure in this one as well. Next up, we've got a short poem from Asteria Geisterbloom. It's a fun little meta piece that's just one stanza, so I'll read it here. Wanted to write a poem about identity, but I can't figure it out for the life of me. So I sigh, turn over the messy page, and play chokehold, because my thoughts seem to be trapped in a cage. The commentary on struggling to identify oneself within the poetry is spot on here, and I really love how Asteria worked the musical pairing into the poem itself by mentioning the name of the song. A very clever and sharp entry from one of my favorite writers in this community. All right, and our final power-up prompt poem for this week is A Name is a Door You Forgot You Opened by Connor Mancuso. And wow, what a title, am I right? This piece starts out incredibly strong as well, with identity being compared to something you offer as a toll, and then it transitions to identity being a key that is sat too long in a lock. And I gotta call out one stanza here where Connor says, "There are nights I stand in the bathroom, and the mirror doesn't reflect me so much as tempt me. It tries to remember the shape of my face, fails, then settles for something close enough to fool my heartbeat." I mean, come on! It's just a beautiful blend of horror and poetry in that example there. And he goes on to describe identity not as a solid thing, but as a truce. A quote-unquote agreement between flesh and story. I mean, wow. Just powerful stuff. Connor's work never misses, but this one really hit the mark for me. The musical pairing is excellent as well. It's suitably somber, but cosmic in scope. And honestly, this is a perfect way to cap off all the poems this week. This prompt lasted 2 weeks, and you all delivered beyond anything I could have imagined. Truly stunning, stunning work from everyone, and by far the most entries we've ever had for a single power-up prompt. So, I know that was a lot of emotions, so why don't we slow things down real quick for a mindful moment. Hey there, this is Chill Bradley, here with this week's Mindful Moment. Here's a quote to consider. I have noticed even people who claim everything is predestined and that we can do nothing to change it, look before they cross the road. Stephen Hawking. Many of us know the modern world to be chaotic. It's why we're always looking for ways to control what we can. We want to feel like we have a say in what happens to us, but I think that's the wrong way to go about it. Instead of trying to control what happens to you, seek to control how you react to it. At the end of the day, things are going to go off the rails from time to time. No amount of preparation, running, or hiding is going to change that. We simply cannot stop certain things from happening to us. If we accept that, then the next logical step becomes, okay, so what happens after? And that's the question we should all be asking, because that part is in our control. Thanks for listening. Back to the show. All right, and we're back. It's time for our featured guest interview. My guest this week is someone whose work I've enjoyed immensely. The way that she weaves together romance, fantasy, comedy, and truly vulnerable works about her own creative journey is just incredibly inspiring to see. She's been making waves here on Substack, and I imagine we're going to be seeing a lot more of her in 2026 with all the amazing projects that she has in motion. So, without further delay, let's dive into this week's featured guest interview. All right, everybody, and this week I'm excited to welcome to the Saved as Draft podcast a writer of comedy, fantasy, and romance who describes herself as a comedic chaos goblin and your guide on the Hot Mess Express. Please welcome to the show, Hallie Jules. Hallie, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's start off by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and your creative journey thus far.
All right. Well, like you've already said, right. I write a lot of different things. I started out writing poetry mostly, as far as my adult writing career goes. And now I kind of write poetry. A lot of my poetry I kind of keep to myself just because it's a little more dark and raw. But as far as Substack, I share a lot of comedic fantasy, or I would say like sometimes magical realism, because it's contemporary settings with like magic or fantasy or mythology mixed in. And every now and then I do something different. Like I wrote a vampire story for one of your prompts. So that was a little different, a little darker than my normal thing. But it was fun because it's like, oh, I get to try a different style. So yeah, I like to branch out and try a lot of different things. But I think my voice tends to always have a little bit of an undertone of snark and sarcasm, even when I write serious things. And I have not ever been able to stop that. So, but I think that's how I am as a person. So.
No, I like that though. I like that. Yeah, no, I think the kind of snarkiness of my own writing voice kind of sneaks in from time to time, even when it's not necessarily comedy. So I understand that.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, how did you get started with writing? How long have you been writing now? And do you by chance remember the first kind of story or poem that you wrote?
So I have been writing since I was really little. I have something called hyperlexia, which is I have basically, as a young child, like very young, I was reading at like way above age level. I basically taught myself to read and write. And so that's a fun little fact. One of my kids is also that way too. He taught himself to read at age 3.
Wow.
So I've always been a reader, and I eventually, once I learned how to write, I started writing stories. I don't remember my earliest, like my parents probably have some things. I don't remember exactly what I wrote. I do remember when I got a little bit older, maybe like 10, 11 years old, I wrote a story that was basically a knockoff of a Nancy Drew book. But I wrote it with like my own characters, and kind of I ended up putting like all my friends' names in it. So I have it somewhere. My parents took me to Staples or Office Max or something, and we got it made into a book. So I have that somewhere laying around. I didn't find it before tonight, but one day I might share some of it on Substack just for fun. It was very cringy, but I mean, for being like 10 or 11 and writing like a novella, I guess, a little mystery, it was fun.
Yeah, that's incredibly impressive, especially for that age. Wow. I would love to. I would love to see more about that if you end up posting it on Substack. I'm gonna have to keep an eye out for that, because that is amazing.
I should find it. It was fun, and of course, it had to do with horses. And I was a stereotypical like horse girl, I guess, growing up.
Right.
We live near a lot of like places where you can ride horses and stuff like that. So it was definitely like it was like a ranch and a mystery, but I could see, even when I went back and read it, I was like, oh, I can see where the characters are kind of joking at each other and picking at each other. I'm like, this has just been a theme for my whole life. So
yeah, no, I love that. I also love the detail that you mentioned about using some of your friends as characters in the book. I feel like I've done that with my stories, all like even up until now. My Order of the Pawn series, a lot of those characters are inspired by people that I know. Is that something you still do with your work? Do you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, my current novel that I'm getting ready to query has 2 characters that are really only mentioned in memories of the main characters, but they are based on my best friend and her husband, and their names are taken from their middle names, not the exact middle names, but pieces of them. So
Oh, that's cool. I like that. Okay,
I
nice.
got their permission, but yeah.
Right, right, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it. That's fantastic. So, when it comes to your work these days, what are your main sources of inspiration? Where do you go to get inspired?
Some of y'all know I have been very inspired by the cult classic film The Princess Bride.
Mm,
Um, but many other inspirations, music, movies, a lot of just little random things that I grew up with. My mom would always play 80s music for me. She would always show me different sitcoms that were like appropriate for me to watch, I guess.
mm-hmm.
But just kind of I would get humor from that, or kind of just see how like people in different situations acted with each other. Like I paid a lot of attention to how people spoke and bantered and things like that. And even to this day, I find that dialogue is easier for me to write than like settings or descriptions, because I started to see all my stories as episodes of like TV, kind of how I
Right,
would describe it.
right, right.
And so I think I get a lot of inspiration from watching other things, kind of seeing how different genres play on different emotions and different things like that. Um, I'm a neurodivergent individual too, so I think I watch a lot. I do a lot of people watching to try to figure out how I'm supposed to act as a person. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that comes out in my writing. My husband and I have a little game, like we'll go to date night, we go to our favorite restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
and so we have like we recognize like the bartender. We recognize it's where you can see the people cooking. Like you can kind of see into the kitchen from like where you're sitting, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
so I can see the chefs and stuff. And so we have like there's different chefs that are there. So depending on the night, so you'll be like one of them's like buff chef guy, and one of them's like mustache chef guy, and like we actually make up different stories about the different people who work at the restaurant. It's just a fun, I don't know. It's fun to kind of make up. Hopefully, I'm not going to say the name of the restaurant, or those people are going to hunt me down. But yeah, I feel like I can find it in just little mundane things, just kind of watching people. I, I can. It's just interesting where you find stuff. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes I step outside and the wind blows a certain way, and I'm like, oh, I've got a poem. I don't know. It's just it hits me sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, no, I love that answer. And honestly, I've heard similar answers from guests on the show before, and I would agree as well. It's one of those things where it's like as a writer, you're very like hyper observant in a good way, right? And like you can kind of see seeds of stories and all kinds of things. Inspiration can really come from anywhere. But I love, sort of like the kind of the people watching, kind of like, being like, in a place like that where it's kind of busy and there's a lot going on. You can kind of catch little snippets of things that work as inspiration, and I love that. Um, it reminds me of back when I was in college. I took a creative writing class where one week our assignment was to write a story based on a snippet of a conversation that we overheard just in our day to day, like going
Oh, I
about our
love those.
lives. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And as you were describing the restaurants, I was like, man, I bet you would do well with that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so my next question here is kind of diving into sort of the themes and topics that tend to come up in your work. Obviously, as you said, you write kind of a lot, several different genres, different formats, but are there kind of, certain things like, again, themes and topics that typically tend to come up in your work more often than not?
I would say the theme of identity comes up a lot,
Mm-hmm.
because I've always struggled with my own identity and trying to figure out my place in the world, I guess. So that comes up a lot in my characters that I write. Also, I would say there's definitely a theme of autonomy, in the sense that my characters I'm very character driven when I write, and I think they tend to write the narrative for me sometimes. But it does beg to question a lot decisions that they'll make. And I'm thinking, what would I, even in situations that might have been inspired from my real life, like if I had been able to make a different choice, how would that have happened?
Mm,
So that, I think in a way it's healing for me in some ways to be able to write certain characters being able to have a little more autonomy in some things than I did
mm,
earlier in my life. So that's a really big thing for me. And also when it comes to romance and love, things themes like that, almost everything I write has usually has some kind of romance or love piece in it, whether it's a found family thing or whether it's more of a romantic love, because I think that's just something that I really feel most people can relate to in some sense, hopefully.
mm, mm,
And so found family is a big theme for me just because I I have some friends that really came into my life, a few different people as I got older that I felt safer around than like I had ever felt around anybody. And I think that's a big theme that shows up in my writing. Safety to be yourself is probably another theme that shows up too, because
mm,
that's something that something I desire for my children and for really everybody.
mm,
So that's something that I want. I want people to read things that I write and feel like if they were talking to me as the author, they would know that they would be safe with me.
mm.
And so that's what I try to weave in with the things that I write, even the things that are a little snarkier or a little bit darker or a little bit just out there. I try to make it accessible. Um, and on that last note, I will also say a more literal thing, I guess, not really a theme. I do sometimes weave in uh, living with a chronic illness or living with neurodiversity
Mm,
into my stories
mhm,
because
mhm,
I have POTS and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. People who have read the Fourth Wing series might recognize Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. That's from that popular series with the dragons.
mm,
But basically, my nervous system doesn't work correctly a lot of the time. So sometimes I stand up and almost pass out, or my joints, I have a lot of issues with my joints. And also, I'm neurodivergent. So that can come into play with a lot of my characters because I do maybe not even overtly, like I may not just like blast it with like a big neon sign, but just letting some of that representation come through the things that I write. And hopefully some of those people in those communities will feel connection with those characters.
Right, right. That is an absolutely amazing answer. I love everything that you've got going on in your stories there, especially, you know, there's just so many good pieces of that answer. Like, so for example, you talked about, kind of using it to kind of explore other ways that things could have gone, give your characters sort of that autonomy that maybe you didn't have. I love that. And then, of course, I'm always going to champion things like representation and inclusivity and stuff like that. And so, all these themes you're bringing into your work, it's just incredible. And I have nothing but the deepest admiration for all of that. So that's a fantastic answer.
Thank you.
Um, all right. Well, my next question here is I wanted to talk about how long you've been here on Substack, and I'd like to get your thoughts on the community thus far since you've been here.
Okay, so it's not even been a whole year, I don't think. Uh,
Hmm.
I think I joined after doing a short story competition, and I met a couple of people through that. Like Tamsin
Mm-hmm.
was in that same competition that I did, and I think she was one of my first subscribers, pretty sure. And she was kind of like everybody posts their Substack links, and so I started doing that in the chat forum or whatever that contest had. And so I made connections with people on Substack that way. I think it was around Mother's Day of last year because I posted like a little poem or something I wrote about Mother's Day
Mm,
as I am a mom and have kids and everything. And then I started out posting more poetry because I didn't have as much fiction ready.
mm-hmm.
And as I started to do more story competitions and things, like if something pretty much most of I did place in one competition, um, but they allowed me to post that to my Substack. And then most of the other things I didn't place in. So like once so many days were up after they posted the results, I was allowed to post on Substack. So I just started posting those little stories that I had submitted, and eventually started posting little snippets of my novel. And I posted it, some bigger pieces of it for a little while, but I'm getting ready to query, so I kind of pulled back on that. But I also eventually started a serial on Substack too. So I guess I've grown a lot more than I really expected. I kind of just thought, like, I'll throw some poems up here, I'll throw some of my contest entries up here. But as I got into it, I realized, like, there's a lot of good things to read here. There's a lot of people that write things that I really enjoy. Sometimes I find myself reading Substack instead of my huge TBR list of like traditionally published books that are on my bookshelf. And my husband's like, stop buying more books. And I'm like, well, I got to buy more books from people on Substack. But because like there are some fantastic writers here. Really like a gold mine. So it's been amazing. And I will say there are times I feel a little bit weird because I don't write like horror very much or things like that. Like I'm more, heartfelt. Not that horror can't be heartfelt. I'm sure you can do that somehow. But I'm just more silly, a little more goofy. But I still feel like I'm able to find at least a few people that genuinely like to read my stuff and will like have conversations with me about the things I write, which is really cool. Not just like, oh, I posted it and it's just out there. I genuinely can get some conversations going. And I try to make conversations with people on posts that I read of theirs that I like. I try my hardest to leave a comment when I read y'all's posts. Sometimes it's just a like if I'm busy, but I try because I want to make other writers feel like they're seen and know that whatever they wrote made an impact on me in whatever way that might be. And so I think that's a really important thing, because writing can be a lonelier endeavor sometimes. So I really like having that community. Because I've done blogs before. Like I did like a mom blog years ago, stuff like that, but nobody ever commented. Like it didn't really get a lot of feedback or connection. And so this has been really fun because I have made connections with people and I have gotten feedback on my work, and I have found beta readers for my novel and just things like that. So it's been so cool, not even a year in. So
that's amazing. Oh, I love asking everyone that question because it's awesome just to hear stories like yours, about finding that sense of community. I think you really hit the nail on the head with the part about writing kind of being lonely at times, and how what we have here on Substack with this community, it really does just, even on my roughest days, this community keeps me going. And it is just, I cannot really describe how grateful I am for everyone within it. So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I love that you've had such a great experience so far. Not even a year. That's amazing. So speaking of Substack and challenges, I wanted to quickly ask you about your ongoing challenge for Valentine's Day, or I believe it ends around Valentine's Day. For anyone who's not familiar with it, it's your Slice of Life. There it is, Valentine's contest. What's that all about? What's going on there, and how and why should people enter?
Well, I love reading slice of life things. Like they just make me happy, like little short things. And some people on Substack write, kind of slice of life stories that you can just read real quick and they're fun. And I figured that'd be a fun little thing for Valentine's Day to do, just because it's a holiday, but also because I am a rom-com writer a lot of times. So it seemed appropriate for me to pick that holiday. So I remember when I came up with the idea for the story, my husband and I were on our anniversary trip and I was in the Disney Skyliner with him. We were at Disney. And I was like, hey, I'm going to do a Substack contest. And he's like, we're not working on this trip kind of thing. I'm just like, I've got to do a contest. Like maybe it was being around all like the Disney, like happily ever after vibes. I don't know. But it was just, I was like, hey, we gotta do something. Again, so much people watching there. I was just getting story ideas everywhere. So I I decided I put it out in a Discord that I'm in, and I was like, "Hey, does anybody want to, be a reader?" So I've got a couple of people that are going to help me read, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be short and sweet, or short and whatever you want it to be. But it just has to follow the prompt of romance isn't dead. We're just tired. So
Mm,
it will will follow that prompt. Um, I've been married for 14 years. And so at this point, that's very much what Valentine's Day can look like. Um,
right, yeah,
romance isn't dead. We're just tired.
right.
So that's where I wanted to do something that was a little bit different, not just like, oh, lovey dovey. It can be whatever you want. It can be super silly. It can be whatever, but 1,000 words max. So it's a little bit of a challenge to kind of get a scene in there, a complete scene. You
Right.
can use characters from a serial you're already writing, characters from a novel, like a bonus scene if you wanted to, or just make up your own, like make something up from scratch. So there's so many options. It could be on a spaceship, it could be a Western, it could be fantasy, whatever, as long as you're following that prompt. Um, yeah. So it's
Cool.
it's gonna be fun.
Very nice. Very nice. I love that you got the idea while on the trip too, because I also have the hardest time disconnecting from, my creative stuff on Substack and work in general, so I would also be the kind of person to be at Disney and be like, you know what, I should do a writing challenge. But yeah, no, this is fantastic. I really like the prompt. Romance isn't dead, we're just tired. I feel like there's something beautiful about that, and I love how you're pairing that with the slice of life because really, like I feel like some of life's kind of most magical and romantic elements are the ones that happen just within the space of the mundane and within that slice of life, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I love that you're tapping into that. It's a fantastic concept. So this is really cool. Great. All right. Well, for everybody listening, there will be a link to this in the show notes. I will make sure to include that.
Yes,
Um,
I should say the deadline to submit would be February 2nd. If you're a little bit late, like let me know, like I'm gonna send it in by this date, but I will be posting the winners on Valentine's Day, and then I'll be contacting the winners for prizes shortly after that. So
okay, got it. February 2nd. So yeah, it'll be a couple of days after this episode goes live. But hey, 1,000 words. I think some people can probably get it in time. So that's good.
yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. I really love that challenge concept. So next up, I wanted to start diving into some of the sections of your publication and some of the stuff you've been publishing on Substack. But first, you've mentioned it a few times. I'd love to know if you're willing to share what your novel is about that you've mentioned thus far in the interview. I didn't realize you had one, so I'd love to learn more.
Yes. So I did post some segments of it on Substack. So when it says a quart of books and coffee, if it has that as the post, then that might be either a snippet of a chapter. I posted a couple of full chapters. There's a lot of like back and forth on whether you should do that if you're querying. So I kind of took off anything that's like a full chapter.
Okay.
There's also like if I post any random short stories that are related to it, it would go with that. Because I have a couple little like one-off stories that kind of go tie into the novel. But yeah, A Quart of Books and Coffee is the novel that I'm trying to query and get an agent for to traditionally publish. So we'll see. My goal is to do that for at least a few months, kind of see where it's going, and then if no dice there, then I do plan to self-publish. Um, so yeah.
Okay, cool. No, I love that. So like just kind of real quick, what's sort of the pitch for A Quart of Books and Coffee?
So it is a portal fantasy.
Hmm.
It's like if you had a rom-com with a portal fantasy. So starts out, you kind of think you're going into a Hallmark movie. You're not. Spoiler. But my husband and I had a conversation one night, and we were like, what do you think would have happened if we had not gotten together for like years after we met? Like, we got together in high school, we got married shortly, like while we were still in college, and then we've been together since then. However, we're like, I was like, I could write a story about, like, talk about alternate choices, right? I'm like, I could write an alternate us. So in a way, I did that a little bit. Um, but I kind of took that best friends vibe and went with that because first of all, most of they get sucked into a romantasy. Most romantasies are like enemies to lovers. So I'm kind of taking tropes and bending and twisting a little bit here. So they get sucked into a fake book, like Bookception, and they have to finish this unfinished manuscript to get home. They have to give it a happy ending because it's a romantasy. And the thing is that these two best friends have been missing each other for years and years, right? So the one guy went into the military after high school. He liked her, but he didn't want to, pin her into like a military relationship or whatever. And he couldn't tell if she liked him back or not or whatever. So she went to college, he went to the military. By the time he got back, she was done with college and she had a boyfriend or whatever. And like she was with that boyfriend for a while, turned into a fiance, that blew up. Now it's months later after her engagement is broken, then you get the inciting incident where main guy Nate has finally asked Callie out to dinner before they go meet their friends for trivia based on The Princess Bride. Okay. So that's my husband and I's favorite movie. I tied that into that. That's their favorite movie. So they get sucked into a book that Callie's boss, Yelena, this Russian lady that owns a local bookshop across from Nate's coffee shop. All right. So she gives Callie this book. She's like, oh, my granddaughter wrote this romantasy book and you love romantasy. So can you look over this? And Callie's looking over it and her boss is like, okay, I got to see you later. And she's like, Nate's coming to pick me up, but I'm reading this book and it's like not even finished. This is like, there's so many plot holes. This is like the Sharknado of romantasy. Like, what am I going to do with this? So, and like all, like there's a book playlist, but it's all Taylor Swift songs. Like, what is going on here? So she gets sucked into the book and then Nate comes after her to like pick her up from the bookshop and he's like banging on the door and he hears her like screaming and he's going in. Thankfully she left the door unlocked because she hadn't closed up yet, so he's running in to get her and he's like gets sucked into the portal and Taylor Swift music is like blasting everywhere magically and he's like, oh my god, I'm gonna die and this is the soundtrack to my death. And so they go in and then they have adventures ensue and they have to confront their own emotional baggage that rewrites the story as well as their shared memories and things like that. So there's a lot of millennial nostalgia in there because they're millennials. They're like 30-ish, which I still think is a millennial now, but a little bit younger than I am. But basically all of these things, like they're using like modern logic to try to navigate a fantasy world. And it's just kind of funny. It's a little bit of satire. I'm trying really hard to balance out the satire with the genuine like romance theme, love, like, we're working together, we're best friends, we're in love, whatever, but like, we're going to get through this together, that kind of thing. But also kind of poking fun at all the romantasy tropes that we all, like those of us who do read romantasy, kind of roll our eyes at sometimes. So kind of picking at that. And of course it is there are some I don't know if I'm saying this word right, pay homage to, is that right?
Yeah,
to the Princess Bride. So there is some of that in there, just because it's fun and that's my husband and I's favorite movie. And so he helped me a lot with when I was writing the male perspective, because I decided to write the female and male perspective as different chapters. And so when the guy gets sucked into the book, he turns into a 500-year-old Fey Lord. So imagine you're a 30-year-old coffee shop owner, veteran dude, whatever. You've been to the military, but you were never prepared for this. You're like, what? And he can turn into a golden retriever because he is a golden retriever boyfriend personality. Like, so he turns into a golden retriever when he's like magically having these mishaps. it's just silly, but it's interesting because the dynamic, I wanted to show a dynamic, like not where the guy is just telling the girl how everything should go, which happens in a lot of books, no offense to men, but like there's a lot of stuff he doesn't understand and she has to help him. And so trying to show them working together to get through the book, get the happy ending and all that kind of stuff. So if they want to get home, they got to finish the book.
I love that.
So it's a lot of it's a lot of fun. I know it's going to be more of the female demographic, but my husband promises me he's not just saying this because he's my husband. It's like there is some stuff in there that as a dude I genuinely laughed at and genuinely thought was fun. So I don't know, but it's been so interesting too because he's not a writer, but I think it's been fun that he's been able to help me find inspiration for this story. And he always says, he's like, no matter what other books you write, this will always be my favorite one because we got to work on it together and we got to put some of our own favorite things into that book. So it's been fun. It's my book baby. So
Yeah. Oh man, I love that. That's a fantastic pitch. I really like how you're kind of turning tropes on their head, a little bit of satire, but you still have kind of that earnest, underlying romance story throughout. And then of course, all the elements like the Princess Bride and just kind of putting, bits and pieces of yourself and your relationship in there. I mean, I love how that all comes together. And then the idea that they have to finish the manuscript to get out, I think is fantastic. I mean, honestly, even as someone who doesn't necessarily read and write a lot of romance or romantasy, it sounds amazing to me. And I think honestly, the comedic element is really going to bring in people, from all over the place when it comes to readers, because, having read some of your work myself, I know that you're extremely funny. So I'm very much looking forward to the comedic stuff in there. Some of that Taylor Swift stuff you mentioned too. Too funny. I love it. It's fantastic.
Yes. I even derived some monsters in the story from Taylor Swift lyrics. So you would have to be a really big Taylor fan to know, probably figure it out, but it was just funny because when I listen to music, sometimes I get ideas, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, what if this was a terrifying monster? Like, okay, sure, let's go with that.
No, I definitely get inspired by music too. That's fantastic. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you again for that pitch. That's fantastic. I cannot wait to get my hands on a copy of that book. I hope that an agent sees the potential in it. But regardless of how it gets published, I'm definitely going to track down a copy once it's out. That sounds amazing. So moving on to your Substack here, one of the big series, it was actually one of the first series that I read from you that you've got going on, is entitled It's All Greek to Phil.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to talk for a minute about that series. If you could tell us kind of, for people who aren't familiar, kind of give us a pitch for what it's about and kind of what readers can expect from it.
Okay, buckle up. All right, so I entered a mythology story contest, short story contest. Had to be 2,000 words, right? And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to write. Like, I'm not super versed in mythology, honestly, but I was like, hey, it's a good challenge. And so literally I was just sitting on the couch one day and my friend, or another couple that my husband and I know, we're good friends with them. He sent a meme because I had recently gone to London as a volunteer guide for an athlete with disabilities and done the London Marathon. And so another fun fact is that I've been a runner in a past life. Now I'm more of a power walker, but so anyway, so yeah, I've done a few marathons, and he sent me this video, which was like, if Phidippides, who was supposedly the first marathon runner, according to legend, in Greece, if he was watching from, the afterlife, real people now running marathons. So the thing is, Phidippides, when supposedly he ran a marathon to deliver, he was a messenger. So he was going to deliver news of victory to Athens from Marathon. So that's where the marathon name came from. So he was going there to deliver news of victory over the Persians so that whoever it was in Athens wouldn't send more troops out or whatever. He's like, okay, we're done. So he actually ran like 2 ultra marathons and a marathon within 3 days to to do all these messages, deliveries, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But after he ran the last 26 miles, he dropped dead.
Oh, wow.
Which, I mean, understandable. You run 2 ultras and a marathon in like 3 days. Yeah. So anyway, but most people just talk about him that last 26 miles, which is where the marathon came from. And so the whole meme that was sent to me was like, he's watching people run marathons and not die. And they get medals and they get beer and they get bananas and they get special, like, whatever, like, that's not cool. Like, I'm doing this for fun. Like, I gave my life up for this. Okay. So that's where I got my short story idea from. And I wrote it kind of like a script for a movie or a TV show. And so in this short story, Hades and Zeus get really drunk and they're in Mount Olympus. And in their Mount Olympus, they have little cloud recliners and they're watching sports on, gilded screens or whatever. So they decided to watch the Chicago Marathon, which I have also done the Chicago Marathon. And so they're watching the Chicago Marathon and Hermes comes in and Hermes is like, what are y'all doing? And they're like super drunk and they're like, hey, look, we resurrected this guy, Phidippides, and put him in the marathon. And so he's literally in Chicago. All right. And so the prompt for these short stories is there had to be someone who was falsely accused. So Phidippides gets falsely accused of trying to enter the race without a bib because Zeus was so drunk he forgot to give credentials. And then the other one was there had to be a conversation without words and there had to be a change of the map. Those were the prompts. So once they take care of, Zeus's or Phidippides' credentials, because Apollo is down on the ground taking over for Chad from Channel 5 to report on everything. Okay. So he's reporting on this and he's like, hey, Dad, you didn't give him a bib. They won't let him in. And so Zeus does his magic and they let him in. And they say, oh, you're Phidippides from the Greek Preservation Society. You're a charity runner. Okay, sure. And he's like, how do I get to Athens from here? What is this place? And he just starts running. And so he's running and running and running. And he's in his sandals and his little dress thing that they wear. And he's running and running through Chicago. And then he trips and falls flat on his butt. And this woman that he says is this beautiful woman sent from the gods, Jessica, comes to help him up. And she is a widowed single mom of 3 kids who's a middle school teacher. Okay. And
right.
she started running marathons to process her grief and whatnot. And so she's helping him up and he's like, the gods have sent beauty incarnate to my aid. And she's like, are you flirting with me for helping you? The audacity, okay. I think she said to him, does your dress have pockets to hold all the audacity? So she gets up and she's about to go away. And he's like, no, please help me. I can't do this. He's at mile 7. And so she's like, okay, well, you're going to need shoes. So the conversation with no words is her negotiating with a bystander for his orange Nikes over car alarms, sirens, all this other stuff that's happening. So she has to mime it to him. She has to type it on her phone and show it to him. And the guy's like, fine, I'll take those weird ass sandals for the Nikes, whatever. I'm a good Samaritan. And they get the shoes and they go. And then they go on. And Phil discovers chafed nipples and she has to help him with that. And discovers needing to drink the ambrosia of goo packets that people eat to go on marathons or whatever. And then the porta potties and all that. And lastly, the change in the map was that Hades gets the Furies to come down as race officials and change the map. So they add an extra mile to the race because Hades is like, oh, I'm going to make him, he's going to die. He's not going to make it. We're going to make it 27.2. And him and Jessica do make it, not without Jessica flipping off the gods, because Phidippides is just like, oh my God, the gods hate me. And she's like, F you. And she flips them off, throws in the bird. And they're all like, oh my God. And so when they get to the end, Zeus shows up in a golden tracksuit with Apollo, with the microphone. They're talking to Jessica and he's like, hey, yeah, so here you go. This guy's officially Phil now. He gets a new life because we won the bet. So I'm giving him a new life on Earth. And by the way, Jessica, because you flipped us off, he's yours. So she gets stuck with Phil. So that's where the whole like it's Greek to Phil thing came from, because people were like, we need, when I posted the main short story on Substack, people were like, we need to know more about Phil. We need to know more about Phil and Jessica. And I was like, okay, fine. I give the people what they want. So I wrote, I only have 5 episodes up now, and I did a Christmas bonus episode. I'm trying to get some more going because I didn't really have it like pre-planned, but I kind of just started throwing it out there just because it was fun. And so Phil goes back to Chicago suburbs with Jessica and she pretends that he is a friend of her late husband, who was a Greek exchange student that came to live in the US with her. Like they got married, all this stuff. And so she's kind of pretending that this is like a friend or relative or somebody from Greece. So they're kind of playing it off of that. And then he has a job at the Greek Preservation Society, which is what they said in the short story, that like that's where he came from. So he just shows up, and of course somehow, you know, the gods worked it out that he's now a janitor understudy or something at this Greek Preservation Society. And so he's, you know, learning all about modern life from the people that work there and from watching TV. And, you know, like the last episode I wrote, I think he went to Target with Jessica, and his mantra was WWJD, which is what would Jim do from The Office, because he's been watching The Office. So, you know, if he had to answer a difficult question, he thinks, what will Jim do? So, but it's been interesting because as I started to write it, I put some like a little bit darker elements. Like Phil can't remember everything about his past life. So there's a little bit of like, he's starting to want to remember things and he can't. And then like Jessica, having him there is reminding her of some of her past. So like there's little bits of memory that flashes back. So it's definitely like a found family fish out of water kind of trope comedy, but I'm trying to, you know, put some of those threads of what humanity is like, even though it's a outrageous story, you know. I'm trying to put those little threads of life in there as far as it goes. So I'm curious. I kind of have an idea of like what the arc is between Phil and Jessica and the family, and like getting the gods involved with everything and all this stuff. I have ideas. I need like a whole week to just sit down and write everything out. But it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. And just like feeling like I don't have the pressure on that to be like, oh, this is something I have to go query. Like it can be as weird as I want it to be because it's going on Substack or whatever, you know?
Right.
So it's kind of been a nice little break from trying to do all the novel stuff.
That makes sense. Yeah. I totally agree, because I have a novel that I keep trying to come back to, but the pressure of it is holding me back, you know, like trying to make it perfect. Whereas like on Substack, it's just like, you already know your audience, you know what they like. Obviously they're enjoying your series here, so you can kind of lean into the, you know, the crazier elements of it, which I read an episode of it recently. And I remember I had commented on it, but there was a conversation in there where they were talking about the Minecraft movie, I think, in that episode. Yeah. And gosh, man, it was so funny. I mean, your dialogue, it makes sense now that you've told me kind of that story, you know, about how you focus on dialogue a lot, but your dialogue was just spot on. Like it was so funny.
I think it's what he calls Jack Black, the short bearded jester.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, so we call Jack Black that in all the movies now.
Oh my God. I mean, it's a fair description.
Yeah. Yeah. Jack Black, if you're listening, sorry. Right?
That'd be awesome if Jack Black ever listened to the podcast. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for that look at It's All Greek to Phil. I will of course include a link to that series, and you know, as we were discussing just now, if you're listening to the show here, you got to check out that series. It is so good. Wonderful premise, super unique, and I just love it has a very almost like nostalgic sitcom feel to it, but it's also modern and fresh, right? Which I really like. All right, so next up, wanted to talk about, you have a section of your publication called the Hot Mess Express, which is kind of where you keep like, you know, personal essays, updates on your work, and then there's some videos on there as well. So my question for you is, what kind of content in general can people expect from that, and how do you approach content like that that's really kind of personal and kind of vulnerable in nature?
Well, I did just do a post in there recently, and it's talking a little bit about my experience with getting ready to query and beta reading, and just some insecurities around putting out my book. And it was probably one of the more vulnerable posts. And I honestly was worried that someone was going to be like, "Are you okay?" But I feel like sometimes it's nice, as even though my Substack is mainly fiction, I think it's nice sometimes to just talk about our lives and present that I'm a real person.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things that I experience that you might not know from just reading fiction. And I think sometimes it can help people feel a little more connected, understand that like I I understand the struggle of a lot of other writers going through querying, going through just even just trying to find your own writing voice. And so I talk a lot about those kinds of things and a lot about imposter syndrome and the inner critic, because I have a very, very strong inner critic. Her name is Wanda. Wanda is a mess, but I named my inner critic because, as a yoga therapist, when I was doing meditations on the inner critic, it was always like, you can name your inner critic, you can give it an archetype or a character type, which I actually did a writer's workshop on imposter syndrome one time with another organization. And if anyone's interested, I'll do one on Substack for you guys. But we did a little meditation where you ask your inner critic to come sit with you. And so, for example, someone was like, well, my inner critic sounds like Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory. Right. And I said, cool. Okay. So you were sitting in a spot. So you have to come sit, like, okay. And just like, you don't know, you never know. Like sometimes when you sit down and get quiet in your mind, you never know what's going to happen. And especially as writers, like, of course, some people don't have an inner critic, and I am super jealous of y'all. How the hell do you do that? Because, sorry, excuse me, excuse my French, but like, how do you just not have that? But right. I will say, I like to share those vulnerable parts of myself because I am a writer, but I'm a person. And I'm on a journey to unravel my identity from things that I have been told all my life that I didn't fit with. And so I think that's why the Hot Mess Express is just kind of me saying, hey, I am a mess personally right now. I'm doing my best. Writing is fun. Writing is how part of my healing process. And just come along for the ride if you want to. I promise we won't crash off a cliff. I do my best, like, right. I have a few videos up there where my husband, known on Substack as Mr. Halley, he does not have a Substack, but he has done a couple of videos with me. There was one where I quizzed him on pop culture references that were in my novel to see if he could catch on. Some of the trickier ones that were like not outright, but like if you know the movie, you would know like, oh, okay, that's a nod to this kind of stuff. So he tried to see how many he could guess. And that was fun. And then we've done a couple other things where I just like read stuff from Substack and he reacted to it. So that's what some of those videos are. And then of course, just, life updates. So yeah, anything that doesn't really fit into like fiction or one of my series or something that kind of goes in that category.
Okay, right. That makes sense. Yeah, no, and I also completely agree with like, something that I love about this community is that it's like everyone on here is just super genuine. A lot of people do similar to what you're doing where they have their fiction and stuff, but they will also post stuff that is very just like from the heart about their lives, about what they struggle with as writers. And I just love that we can be vulnerable in this community, and everyone kind of respects it. They feel seen. And it's just wonderful. Like it's not what you'd expect from social media or the internet, but it's amazing. Right. Yeah, it's fantastic. So I love it when authors like yourself kind of have, a section of the publication for that kind of stuff, because it really is important. And I definitely admire that. So next I want to talk about, because we have a unique situation here where I'm talking to someone on the show on the same episode that, of course, you submitted a Power Up Prompt poem. So I wanted to talk about that next. Your poem, of course, is Shake Me Out. And I will be sharing my thoughts on it, obviously, as part of the episode here. But I'd love to hear from the author, kind of what your experience was like writing this. Obviously, you mentioned, identity as kind of a big theme, so that lined up nicely here. And I love the approach that you took. But let me turn it over to you to kind of tell us a bit about how this poem came together.
Yeah. So this is such a fun poem. And I don't know if anyone realized it, but my real first name is in here as a little Easter egg. Because it was about identity. So to go super, super, super short, I grew up in a very, I didn't have a bad, I shouldn't say I had like a bad childhood or anything, but I grew up in a very religious setting, right? And especially when I went to high school, they were very strict. And so I never fit with what they thought I should be. Even when I was dating my now husband, they were like, God has big plans for him and you're going to steal his heart. And so, we're still trying to figure out what the big plans are. So if anybody knows God, if God gave him any messages, let them know Mr. Halley is waiting for like his, massive lottery mansion or whatever.
Right.
But it was definitely an interesting situation to be in where you're 16 years old and you meet a boy, or whoever you meet, right? And adults are telling you like this is wrong. It's just a very weird feeling.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of trauma therapy and stuff I've had to do for different things. But also just growing up and discovering new parts of my identity that I didn't realize were there, or things that I thought were wrong or bad. And oddly enough, because again, I pull so much from movies and social media. My friend loves the Wicked movies, my best friend. And so we went to see those. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am like if I had been the green person at school, like that would have been me. If I would have been Elphaba at my school. So like I related to that so much. And I also felt like that went along with the song that I picked for this poem. So the song that I picked was Shake It Out by Florence and the Machine.
Yep.
So she's talking about one of the lines in it is it's hard to dance with a devil on your back, so shake it off. Shake it off. So I think for me, that was a big thing. I was a dancer when I was young too. So it's very interesting. Just like kind of that metaphor coming back.
Right.
But yeah, so I'll read this section. This is a hint. So this section says, each line, pay attention to the first letter. Just so you know, underneath this facade lies a blank slate, infinite galaxies yawning awake, a name I no longer claim. So that's where I put my name. So y'all can look at it. You can find it. But my actual name, and some of you guys on Substack already know, but I think for me, especially when I wrote this poem, when I think about a name that I no longer claim,
right?
A lot of people on here call me Hallie. And the thing I like about that is that's not my legal name. I'm not going to change my name legally or anything, but I kind of like having this persona that is genuinely me. I have not faked anything on Substack. Like I have been myself 100%. Right. And this is really the first time I've ever experienced that. So when this prompt came out, I was like, oh, I've got to jump on this. I've got it. And so, yeah, the last part where it says it says, they say joy arrives with the dawn, but I come alive in the dark, creature of the night, paint myself green with the ink of the leaves, a monster of your own making, the fragrant reminder of how epically you failed me. There is no more forgive and forget, no more muting my voice to protect your guilty ears. I see the way now. It is time to go forth into the morn, not gently, but fiercely, completely undone. Look out, world. Something wicked this way comes. So some of that was me accepting the identity of not fitting in the religious setting or being someone that is seen as a rebel or someone that's wicked because I wasn't what they wanted or I did something they didn't approve of. And so I think not that I'm out there like trying to be a terrible monster or something, but just like, look, like I made it, I'm okay, but you think I'm wicked, so whatever.
Right.
Here I am. Go ahead. I'm not dragging this dead horse around anymore. We're done. So I think that's where a lot of that came out. It was very raw, and I literally wrote it in like 30 minutes. I sat down and just like it all came out.
Wow.
Like, okay, this is how I'm putting it out here. This is what it is.
Yeah. That's incredible. My goodness. Oh man. It's so cool to hear, your kind of thinking behind this piece because, obviously I've read it a few times now. I loved how it was very raw, it was very genuine and authentic, and I like how it painted this story of all these different kind of personas that you've had kind of growing up and finding yourself. And then I have to call out the one stanza that you shared where your name is hidden in there, because I love the fact that you hid your name in there, and that stanza specifically is about kind of shedding that name in like a a metaphorical sense, and kind of starting fresh. It's one of my favorite stanzas in the whole poem. So to know that there's even more hidden behind that, I think is absolutely amazing. And then of course, I think I said this in my comment too, but at the end, like just the confidence, like the certainty in those last couple stanzas. I mean, it's just an incredible piece. So thank you so much for giving us that background on it, because now I love it even more.
Yeah, thank you for I loved when you said you were doing I was like, I got this. I love to write random poetry that comes to me at like 2 a.m. Like this is what I was made for. Let's go. But
Yeah. No, I love that. Oh, it's amazing. Can I expect to potentially see some work from you in Flash Fiction February that's starting up here soon?
I am planning on it. I want to it's a great, like, something else to put my focus on while I'm trying to, send out my manuscript to agents, hopefully, and stuff. So I think it'll be a really fun way to get my creative juices flowing in, because I've been a little bit, like, blocked, I think, like, just trying to do all of this novel stuff.
Yeah, no, it's important to give yourself like some creative outlets, other things that you can work on. Yeah, because otherwise you'll I mean, I'm speaking from experience. You'll burn yourself out trying to just force the novel if it's not quite the right time to work on it.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that.
No, that's awesome. I'm excited to hear it. Yeah, I've got a bunch of genres that'll pop up over the course of February in the prompts there, and there will absolutely be some comedy ones in there. So I'm excited to see what you do for those.
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome. Okay. Well, coming up to my last couple questions here, wanted to just quickly ask if you have any other kind of big writing projects that you're working on in 2026, or any kind of, things that you want to share for people who may already know you or who are just now getting into your work, kind of want to give you a space to talk about anything you got else going on in this year.
Yeah. Well, my goal is to put out at least 1 or 2 full episodes in a month. I'm going to try. Because again, I didn't have like a huge backlog. It was kind of just like seat in my pants thing. It was just fun.
Yeah.
But I'm having fun, like, thinking of ideas, and people are always welcome to send me ideas. Like, if you're like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if Phil like did this? Like, yeah, send me an idea, because I'd love to kind of like see if I can work it in. I'll probably do like a Valentine's Day episode coming up soon. So been working on that. And then I'm thinking about I literally just thought of this today. I'm thinking about trying to put some of my poetry into a collection, and maybe just self-publishing that. I don't know that I would go, do trad publish with that. Just because I'm not going to be like a mainly poetry person, but just in case anybody on Substack would be interested in downloading a bunch of my poetry that I wrote at 2 a.m., I'm thinking about that. And then also working on trying to get an agent for A Quart of Books and Coffee, if I can.
Yep.
And I'll keep updates with y'all about that. So when it gets closer to the fall, I'm going to kind of see how that's looking as far as what's going on, and I'll update y'all whether I'm going to continue querying or go self-publish route. And And then I have one novel that I have written probably about 5 chapters of, have an outline for. It's about a ghost in a typewriter, and it is a rom-com style, more contemporary magical realism, paranormal stuff,
Hmm.
with a little bit of, found family mystery aspect to it as well. So that's been fun. I had the idea several months ago, but I kind of started writing it and outlining it during Novel November because I needed a little break from editing and revising my other novel. So I want to get back more into working on that and eventually deciding whether I will self-publish or query that. I haven't decided. I'm kind of letting myself take it as it goes. And then I would love to write a sequel sort of to the novel that I am querying. So I have an idea based on other characters in the novel, and it might involve fantasy people coming into the real world.
Okay.
Since I seem to be going into that fish out of water trope thing as my thing. But yeah, so I have some ideas and I'm excited to explore that. I might enter a few contests this year. I don't know. I'm trying to I'm exploring this writer identity because when I got diagnosed with my new conditions, it became very clear that my job as a group fitness instructor at the time was just not going to be physically sustainable.
Hmm.
So right now, I'm fortunate that my husband can support us and that he's very supportive in me trying to grow my Substack and grow my writing. And so I'm really giving this year to see if I can take off.
Right.
um, so, feel free to send me coffees, guys. I've got a lot of work to do, but I really, really want to try to make this work. So I appreciate all the support I have gotten from Substack, and I'm excited to see what happens. Whether I go trad publish or self publish or a combo of whatever,
Yeah.
this is my dream career ever since I was a kid, ever since I was writing Nancy Drew knockoffs, so yeah.
I love that so much. It makes me so happy too to hear when family and partners are so supportive, and I love that you're kind of taking the leap into writing here. I love everything that I've heard that you're working on, and from what I've read of your stuff, I mean, you've got the spark, you've got really cool ideas that feel very fresh, but also relatable and unique. So if anybody's going to make it's going to be you. And yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that you've got my support and obviously the support of the community, because I love to hear about people kind of taking the leap like this. And yeah, I have zero doubt in my mind that you're going to find success. But that is just amazing to hear. A lot of great stuff going on this year for you. That's fantastic. All right. Well, we're down to my last question. I ask every guest this on the show. So looking back on your creative journey and all the progress you've made on Substack here, what is one piece of advice that you would give to fellow writers or poets who are just starting out, or maybe they just joined Substack?
I would say, and I'm going to take my own advice, do not sand yourself down to make everybody happy, because you won't. All right. So write the weird stuff, write the crazy stuff, whatever, and you're going to find your people somehow. I have found people I never would have imagined a few months ago that people from Australia or Singapore or wherever would be reading my novel or, offering to beta read my novel, things like that. I don't know. Sometimes you just have to take a leap.
Yeah.
But don't sacrifice who you are, because take it from someone who has spent 34 years sacrificing who I am, and I'm just done with that. So
right.
please, we need people to be unique. And we need people to be who they are. We need the voices, because you don't know who's like reading your posts and scrolling through Substack and they may never say a word. But you don't know that you could have written something that's literally saved someone's life because they felt seen. So it might seem weird. Obviously don't, if it's really vulnerable or something, you don't have to put everything out online. Obviously that is totally up to you. But I would say just don't feel like this is just, oh, I'm being an influencer or whatever. Like you'll find people in Substack community that will give you space for your voice.
Yeah.
You
No,
won't find, I don't think, in like other social media places. So
yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
not great with social media, so don't take my word for it. I'm not on like Book Talk or anything, but I'm just saying, like, it's been so great to just be able to put my voice out there, put myself out there, and meet so many fresh perspectives. So don't be afraid. If you are new to Substack and you need some people to follow, I'm happy to give you some recommendations, or Bradley can, you have so many great recommendations. So yeah, definitely get involved, do some fun prompts, challenges, things like that to grow your creative muscle. But yeah, you never know until you put yourself out there. If you don't write it, no one's ever going to see it, really.
Right. Right.
So
That is amazing advice. Amazing advice. And it resonates with everything we've talked about in this interview. So yeah, I could not think of a better response to that question from your perspective and everything that you do and that you have done. So wonderful answer. And yeah, that brings us to the end of the interview here. But just wanted to thank you again for coming on to the show. This was just absolutely amazing. It was awesome to get to learn more about you and your work. And I cannot wait to see how many people go running to your publication to check out all the amazing stuff you're working on.
thank you all. I appreciate it. Love having some new friends on the Hot Mess Express.
Right.
And to add some more train cars to it. But yeah.
Absolutely. All right. And a huge thank you to Hallie again for coming on to the show. That was an amazing interview, packed with some beautiful takeaways. I'm also a fan of how her mind works. Her projects are just incredibly unique, but also incredibly human. She's bound for great things. I know it, and I, for one, cannot wait to see how far she'll go. Okay, next up, let's round things off with a look at next week on Substack. All right, friends, well, it is nearly that time. This Sunday, as of this recording, it's Friday, so 2 more days. February 1st means that we are launching Flash Fiction February. If you haven't read my post about the challenge, I'll give you a quick overview of how it's going to work right here. Basically, starting on February 1st, you'll be able to find daily writing prompts in my subscriber chat. Each day will bring a different genre, and some days will offer wildcards, where the prompt includes a special requirement that you'll need to weave in. You'll be encouraged to share your links in the relevant subscriber chat threads and in general, but for the first time ever, I'll have a link each day to an entry form. This quick little form will allow you to submit your links for stories every time you write one, and you can specify which prompt it's for. Once entered, your stories will then be added to a scoreboard that tracks likes, comments, and restacks. Altogether, those 3 things will total your score. My good friend Leron Haywood is working behind the scenes to make this all possible, so be sure to show them your thanks by subscribing, because they do write some amazing stories. Based on the number of subscribers you have, each entry will be placed into one of 3 brackets. And every week on the podcast here in February, I'll take a look at the leaderboards for each bracket. The more you enter, the more chances you have to rack up points and win. I did a poll about the grand prize, so I'll announce what that is once I see the final poll results, but suffice to say, make sure you enter your stories throughout the month if you want to be considered for that side of the challenge. If not, feel free to share your links in the chat. No harm, no foul. This is all about having fun. It's about building community and stretching our creative muscles. My prompts are wild, so I promise I'll be keeping you all on your toes throughout the next month. And honestly, that's the big focus for February. We'll hit the pause button on power-up prompts and wandering prompts until March. But like I said, you'll have a new prompt every single day starting this Sunday. So I hope to see you there. And that's all I've got for you all this week. I'm trying to survive round 2 of Snowpocalypse this weekend, so I'll check back in with you on Sunday for day 1 of Flash Fiction February. In the meantime, stay safe. If you're in this winter storm area, stay warm. And always, stay creative, my friends. This is Bradley Ramsey, signing off.
And then he says, "Where's the pressures?" I like this. They're laughing at all our jokes.
You know what? I'm just going to let them enjoy this one.